Hi there. I am happy to be here tonight to be sharing with you. I'm not sure how many people we've got with us right now, but we'll get going because you can always watch a replay. And we've got a lot to get through, really. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm Belinda Bailey and I work with women and couples in relationship and in human transformation. So, tonight I just want to get straight into it. Our topic that we're looking at is healthy communication. And I put a post on this page a little while ago giving some options of what people wanted to hear about and learn about, and it was an overwhelming response for communication. And I'm not surprised. Communication is key in relationships. We know that all of us, any of us who've been in a relationship before, know what it's like to get to that point where you just feel like you're butting heads all the time and not understanding each other. And I think even more than that, feeling like we're not being understood and when we're not being got, when he's just not getting us or they're just not getting us. And, it doesn't matter how intelligent we are and how much we want it to work. When we're just not understanding each other, it's just not going anywhere. And when we can't communicate effectively, it's just not going anywhere. Communication really is the main tool that we have in relationships. And so there's so much to cover in this topic. There really is. It's huge. I offer one entire module based on communication in my Love Codes program. Tonight, I'm going to try and cover three of the main issues and tools that I can offer you as well. We'll try and cover them all. We'll do the best that we can. I want to just flag at the very onset of this. Hi, Alicia. Welcome. I just want to flag right at the front of this. One of the issues that we have, or an underlying issue that we often have in our communication, in our relationships, is that there really needs to be, or there should be, in a healthy relationship, a polarity. So we often talk about this as the masculine and feminine polarity. It doesn't necessarily mean man and woman polarity. It often is, though. Often men are embodying that more masculine space and women are embodying that more feminine space. It's not the only way, and I just want to say that up front, but I may refer to it as women and men at times. Please just understand that's the majority of people who I work with. So in a healthy relationship, we have these polarities, and it creates a magnetism. And the feminine aspect feels one side and the masculine aspect feels the other side, and they have this wonderful dance together, and that's just kind of nature. They're the poles, the negative and positive poles. And I don't need to say to you that we're living in a world and in a culture that's predominantly masculine. And when I say that, we're very focused on outcomes. We're really direction focused. We're really analytical, and these things are revered in our society, and that's all well and good. And so, as men and women, we're generally embodying this masculine aspect of ourselves, and this comes to our communication as well. Now, out in the world, this is a really great way to be, an effective way to be when you're at work or need to get something done. But when we come back into our relationships, we need to be able to drop. One of us needs to be able to drop that polarity. And when we do, if we're able to step back into a more feminine way of communicating, not only is it natural for us and does it feel natural when you actually remember it, it creates that beautiful polarity within the relationship again. So just to get a little bit of an idea, let's talk firstly, the first thing I want to talk about is the communication psychology and how it's different in the masculine aspect and the feminine aspect, which is generally with men and women. So there's two sides or two ends to communication psychology. One is autonomous processing. So this is the way that we process information, which then is turned into communication. So the more masculine way of communicating is autonomous processing. So this is where the information is taken in, it's considered, it's processed internally, we process it on our own, and it's outcome focused. So it's looking for a solution. Okay, so that's one way of communicating, and those of you who've been in relationships with men before will be able to relate that that sounds like the way most men process. Then the other way of processing information, as far as communicating goes, is the collaborative processing. And this is where we like to talk things out. We like to share and bounce ideas around. It's the workshopping way of communicating. And this is generally the feminine way and the way we like to communicate. It's not focused, or it's not, its main objective isn't getting to the end result. Its main objective is the journey itself. So these are two different ways of communicating, and they're both great. And I'm sure we all know what it's like to want to workshop something. You know, sometimes we just love to chat about things all the time. So that's great. We've got these two ways of communicating. And what can happen is, one of the biggest hurdles that we come across, and this is a big one for both when we're single and starting to date men, and secondly, when we're in relationship long term, is that we're used to processing our information collaboratively. That's kind of how we do things. So if we go and talk to a girlfriend and we want to talk about something like, you know, let's say I've had an issue come up with another friend or with my mother, or something's happening at work and I want to talk about it, and I tell her, we have a big chat, and we you know, we banter about it, we process back and forth, and that's all well and good. Now, when we go and talk to a potential partner or our partner and we want to tell him about the same thing, so we say, you know, I've had this issue at work where this friend of mine is, you know, I'm feeling sad, she's kind of talking to me in a certain way and I'm not enjoying it. And often his response will be something like, and then he'll keep doing what he's doing. And I mean, there's a whole kind of range of ways around that as to how he could respond. But so often, how many of us have had that response from a man, and what we felt is he doesn't really care. He's clearly not interested. And then we feel either sad or angry. Or we might then even detach ourselves because we feel like he's not really interested. Now, this is understandable that we feel this way. But the reason that we feel this way is because we judge men's response. We judge their behavior based on our own internal yardstick, you know, our own internal filters as to what we would do, because that's all we know. So let's say, for instance, that same situation happened with a girlfriend where I told her, you know, I called her up, I said, you know, this thing's going on at work and it's really hurting me and I'm really upset, or I'm talking to her in person, and she goes, and keeps on doing what she's doing. We'd be like, well, she clearly doesn't care. And she probably wouldn't. For a female friend to respond in that way means that she really isn't interested, or she probably doesn't really care. But where we go wrong with men, the poor goddamn creatures, is that here they are responding, and we get angry with them because we think they don't care. Do you know what's really happening? Most of the time, what's happening is, remember, he's an autonomous processor. He takes that information in, and then he starts to process it internally. All of the things that we do externally, ask lots of questions, share more information, dig really deep, workshop back and forth, he does that inside. So if we actually gave him half a chance, more often than not, that man will come back to you with a response. But more often than not, he doesn't get the opportunity to do that because we crack the shits and walk away, or we butt in and say, well, why didn't you say something? Because we feel like he doesn't care. But they take their time to process things, and they do it silently and internally. So what I want to do, this is the first tool that I want to share with you guys, you women. Hi, Kate. Yeah, it's true, right? It's so true. So what I want to share with you guys, the very first thing that you can do is what I call leave a gap. Say what you need to say to your man and then zip it. Leave a gap. Leave that space. And this, for those women who do my program, they see that this particular thing can be applied in many different areas. And this is the first place, though. If you just shut up, remind yourself, I mean, if you're feeling sad, I get it if you think he doesn't care, but remind yourself, hey, I can't judge him based on my own internal processing. He's an autonomous processor. Let's just leave it with him. He might come back to you in 5 minutes. He might not come back to you until after dinner. He might go off, do his thing, and then at dinner, out of the blue, he starts to say, I was thinking about what you're telling me about work, and this is what I think. That. It happens to me all the time, and it happens to so many women I know who've learnt this process and apply it, and it's uncanny, but I promise you that it does happen. So the very first thing that we kind of need to understand is that we have different types of communication psychology. Remember, he's an autonomous processor, we're a collaborative processor, and we need to keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to move on. Next thing. If anyone has questions, please ask away or say hi to me so I know that you're there. The next thing, though, I want to move on and keep going because, as I said, there's heaps to cover. So the next thing is when we want to ask him about it for some advice. A lot of us feel, and this is especially once you're in a relationship for some time, we can feel like, again, like they're not interested, or they don't give us enough input. They don't want to communicate and give us their advice or their thoughts or their feelings about things very much. Now, whilst this may be the case, there is something that we can do about it, or more specifically, there's probably something that we've already done that's caused men to behave in this way, or that they've had the experience in the past to, oh, my sister's here, hi Rach, to have this experience in the past, and we can help them to undo it. So again, men are autonomous processors. We've spoken about that. That means that he's looking for solutions. It's important to him to find solutions for us. We need to remember also that men need to be a hero. And I know that word can sound a bit weird for some of us, but what I mean by that is men need to be, hi Joan, men like to be challenged and need to feel like they can overcome these challenges and feel like a warrior or feel like a hero. It's important to them. And one of the things that they're most eager to perform with is making their woman happy. When a man sees his woman happy, he feels like he's the winner. Whether he's been the one who's made you happy or not is kind of irrelevant. Men are pretty sensitive, and they feel like it's their fault if you're not happy, and it's their doing if you are happy. So men want to make us happy. So he is outcome oriented in his internal processing. He wants to make you happy. So if you want him to contribute, to communicate, when you're asking for input, we need to make sure that you only ask your man's advice if you're willing to take it. This is a really big thing to kind of get your head around. Hi, Hannah. Welcome, gorgeous. This is a really big thing to get our head around. When we ask a man for his advice and we don't take it, he feels like he got it wrong. Oh, excuse me. He feels like he got it wrong, and he's not going to be that forthcoming next time. So that doesn't mean we can't ask his advice unless we have to do exactly what he says. Let me explain. So often when we're trying to work something out, again, we're workshoppers, right? We're collaborative communicators. So we like to workshop. So let's say, I'll give you a real example, okay? There was a time when I was going to a work do and I needed to decide what to wear. Now, how many men love helping us decide what to wear? Not many, right? But I didn't know what to wear, and I had 3 dresses to choose from. And I did ask my partner, and this was early on in our relationship, I asked him which one he thought I should wear. And he looks at me and he says, the black one. That was it. And he went back to what he was doing. And I was like, what, is that it? The black one. So anyway, I went off, went into my room. I looked at I looked at it and was trying to decide what I wanted to wear and what have you. And then I called a girlfriend, and she gave me what I wanted. She said, well, what's the event? And I told her it's a work event with colleagues and potential partners. And she said, well, is it conservative or is it kind of flouncy? I'm like, well, it's a bit conservative. And she said, well, is there a theme? No theme. What's the day called? Like, she asked all the questions, right? These are all the questions I want to ask. And it's funny, when I remember this story, I don't actually remember in the end which dress she suggested I should wear. But I ended up wearing the red dress. So anyway, when I came out dressed up to go, my partner was like, looked at me and just kind of went, oh, you look nice. And I knew right away I'd fucked up, because he took it personally that I wore the dress that he didn't decide, that he didn't say. So he got it wrong. Now, that means next time I want to ask his advice on something, he's going to be less inclined to want to get involved because he feels like he didn't get it right. So, what we want to do instead is this. It doesn't mean that you can't ask his advice. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that if you want to workshop something, if you want to bounce ideas around, your man is not the person to go to. Your girlfriends are the people to go to. That's what we do well. Now, on the other hand, if you want to ask his advice on something, only ask his advice on something that you're willing to take his advice on. So, for instance, in that example, in future, when I've wanted to ask my partner's advice for what I was going to wear, I mean, this isn't a big deal what you want to wear. There are much bigger decisions in life, but this is a good place to start. In future, when I've asked him his advice on what I want to wear, I make sure that I narrow it down to 2 things or 3 things, whatever. Let's say 2 things that I am very willing to wear. I would be happy with either one of them, and only then would I ask his advice. And I've done it. I've done it so many times now, and so have a lot of the women that I work with. And what happens is the most beautiful thing. You wear the thing that he says to where you go out, and as soon as you get a compliment, I guarantee you, you see him chest puffs up. He's all like, yeah, I'm the shit because I told her to wear that. He might not say that, but he feels so great. And then what happens the next time you ask his advice for something? He's so keen. I can tell you, my husband loves to go shopping with me. I've never met another man who does. He loves to go shopping and take me shopping and get me to try on clothes because he feels confident that I am confident in his advice. So when this is a really, really powerful thing. And I'd love for you guys to practice this with your partners or potential partners. If you're going to ask his advice on something, before you do, just stop and ask, am I willing to take his advice on this? Or do I just want to kind of banter about it? And understand the difference or the different roles that people play in your life, the different roles your girlfriends play and your partner plays in your life. He wants to make you happy. He's autonomous. He's an autonomous processor, and his solution and outcome focused when he comes to communicating. So just understanding that about him puts you in a better place. It stops you having expectations on him that he's not going to be able to fulfill, but also judging his behavior based on your own way of being, which is always going to leave you ending up feeling hurt and him feeling frustrated and like, what the hell have I done wrong? So just really think about that. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is communication styles. So there are 2 styles there are many, but when we're talking about kind of the battle of the sexes in communication, there are 2 styles of communicating: the feminine way and the masculine way. So again, really moving away from feminine and masculine because, of course, we don't all identify with those terms. But just so that we all understand, there's the feminine and masculine, or what I like to call the attractive style of communicating and the directive style of communicating. Now, again, the more masculine or directive style of communication is a really efficient and wonderful way to communicate when we're out in the world and we need to get something done. Sadly, like I was mentioning before, when we, in our current culture, our Western culture, we're living in a predominantly masculine climate. That means that even as women or men, we're almost always embodying that masculine or directive way of communicating, directive way of being in the world. So when we're out there at our jobs and we're getting shit done, we're speaking in this directive way. Now, that directive communication, specifically, it expresses that thing that you want to get done in no uncertain terms, what you want and how to do it. The desired outcome here is just getting the job done. That's directive communication, very efficient. And mostly that's the way that we're communicating. Sadly, we have, most of us, lost our ability to communicate in our much more natural way, our feminine way, or our attractive communication. Now, attractive communication is where we create an environment of attraction toward the topic that we're wanting to discuss. It makes the conversation or the communication about me and about how I feel. So this creates, talking about me and talking about how I feel creates, or making it about me, making it about how I feel more specifically, it creates a sense of attraction. It attracts attention to the topic rather than directing someone's attention to the topic. So you can see there's the polarities again at play. Now, is it important if it's the woman or the man doing one or the other? Not really. It's important that we have the polarities there. However, one of the complaints that I do get from women a lot is that their men end up feeling a bit too feminine. They want their men to feel a bit more manly and a bit more strong and a bit more directive. So if that's the case, then yes, it is an issue who is in which polarity. And as women, we are so often embodying that directive style of communication. So when we can learn to drop that masculine or directive style of communication and step back into our attractive style of communication, wow, what a freaking difference it makes. Because now we've got the polarities. What happens when we don't? What happens when there's two masculine polarities communicating? It's a battle. It's a competition, because masculine energy is competitive. When we're embodying our attractive style of communication, then we open up a space for the men in our life to step up and be the hero, to be that masculine, awesome, amazing, get shit done kind of guy, which, you know, we love. Now, to just get a little bit more specific of how these types of communication work in relationship, let me give you some examples, okay? So one really good example is, okay, I've got a great example. This is a client of mine. She was just this amazing, amazing woman, married for many years with 2 kids, and she started to work nights. So once her youngest child was a little bit older, she was able to go back to work, but she'd work at night. And whenever she'd come home, she would come home and it'll be dark, and she kind of felt a bit freaked out going to the front door, and it wasn't very nice. And so she'd often ask her husband on those nights, can you leave the light on for me? And he'd say, yeah, sure. And he'd do it once and then he'd forget again, like once and then forget. And it pissed her off. It made her feel, not only was it hard to see what she was doing, she felt a little bit scared when she came home, but also she just felt like he didn't care because he didn't remember. But the thing is, she was being very directive and very, masculine in her approach of telling him what to do. So let's backtrack for a moment. What happens when we speak to a man in that directive tone, in that directive manner, is that he might do what we want him to do, but if he does, he feels emasculated. So if we embody the masculine and get directive with a guy, he's got one of 2 choices, and they're both really bad choices. We don't like either of them. One of them is that he says yes and he feels emasculated, and we end up not being attracted to him anymore. When men are emasculated and they when you want a man to do, and he does it and he keeps doing it and he's just kind of at your beck and call, we end up losing that attraction because we lose that polarity. Or he can say no and he keeps that polarity, but he drives a wedge between you, and there's, the love isn't, and the bonding isn't growing, but you're still attracted to him. This is one of the reasons we're usually attracted to men that are bad for us, is because the polarity stays there, but you're not fostering any sense of love and trust and commitment. So let's go back to the story of my client, Natalie. So she tells her husband, and he does it once, doesn't do it again. Down the track, a few weeks later, she asks him and does it again once, and then keeps forgetting. And this might seem like a small thing, but clearly this was the straw that broke the camel's back. So it was after this is when she first came to see me and do my work, and this was a story she told me, and she was just at her absolute wit's end. She was over it. She'd had enough. And yes, there was a lot more going on, but of the same ilk. So what I spoke to her about was this attractive style of communication. And again, this is one of the codes in the program, attractive persuasion, and it's a particular way of communicating with men. And when you first hear it, it might sound a little bit weird or like not normal or not how you'd normally communicate. But every single woman that does this work with me says that in the end, once she's like relearned it, it actually feels more natural than the way we have been speaking. So attractive communication is making it about me, or making it about me and how I feel. So remember, men want to make us happy. So if we can actually express to our man the things that we want and how it's going to make me feel, this creates an option for him. He then has a choice to choose to do it himself, to step up and be the man and take care of you. So I spoke with this client about attractive communication, and I gave her an actual formula to apply. And when she applied the formula to this conversation, he left the light on, and he then continued to do it every night, and he does it now, always. That might sound like a small thing, but can you imagine having this same conversation, I'm sure a lot of you can, for a long time, like more than a year, asking him to do this thing. And then all of a sudden he's done it and he's doing it. So this attractive communication, and there's a formula, I'll teach you the formula right now so that you can apply it. It's really simple. It's called the win-win formula. So you might want to write this down too. So you need to discover what you want, how it makes you feel, and then the prize that he gets. So for Natalie in this situation, the next time he did leave the light on for her, that night she came in and she said, honey, when you leave that light on for me, when I come home from work and you've left the light on for me, I feel so relaxed. I feel safe. And I feel so relaxed that when I come in, I'm just like really available and present. And, first she's told him what I want. Light left on, please. How does it make me feel? Relaxed and available. And the prize that he gets is her being relaxed and available. But what he hears is relaxed, available, snuggle time. Because that's the thing for them. They've spoken about when I'm relaxed, I feel more like snuggling. And so she said that to him. So what I want. What do I want? I want the light left on when I come home from work. How does it make me feel? Relaxed. And what's his prize? I feel like snuggle time. He is going to be keeping that light on the whole time. But a lot of women ask the question, well, what's the prize? Like, I get what I want in every situation. I can kind of get an idea of how it makes me feel, but what's his prize going to be? His prize, remember, it's always some sort of form of making you happy. That's what men want. Men want to make a woman happy. If you notice, the women who get lots of attention from men and often end up in relationships, and men find it easy to attract a partner, are usually women who are generally happy, because men feel like it's easy to win with them because that's what they want to do, is make us happy. So remember this attractive communication. It's just gold, and the win-win formula. Try it out with something small. Start with something small and then go to something larger. I want to keep moving on. If you have any questions about it, then ask me now, because I'll answer them as best I can. But otherwise, I'm going to keep moving on. There's 2 more points that I'd love to cover. 2 really important ones. Neediness. Being needy. Who here has ever been told that you're too needy? And then in the next breath, we read in some magazine that my needs are important and we need to have our needs met in a relationship. And what does this mean? It's so goddamn confusing, right? So this is something that I've gone really deep on. Needs versus neediness. Where's the line and how do they differ? Well, first of all, the first thing that we need to do, if we want to understand what it means to be needy and how not to be that, and understand how to get our needs met, the first and most important thing we need to understand, and how do we communicate that, we need to understand what is a need and how does that differ from a want. So now a lot of us these days think that everything's a need, and it's not. So how do we tell the difference? There's some things like, I want a man who has his own home, or I want a man who's willing to travel. Is that a need? I need a man who's going to travel. I need a man who's got his own home. We need to kind of weigh that up. A want is something that you want. A need is something that you're not willing to negotiate. It's a non-negotiable, which means that without having that fulfilled, you are willing to walk away from the relationship right there and then. That's a game changer. So anyone who's watching this, I would love for you to take some time and write down all the things that you think are wants or needs. Just write them all down and then go through them and ask yourself which ones are wants and put them over here, which ones are needs. You should end up with very few actual needs. And they should be something that you are willing to leave your relationship for. So, for instance, for me, a need is self accountability. I absolutely must have a person who's accountable. And if that's not present, I will leave the relationship. That's just a non negotiable for me. A want for me is somebody who is successful. And when I say successful, I mean happy and vibrant and operating in their passion. It's so important to me. I love that. It turns me on, but it's not a need. So first we need to get really clear on what they are. Okay. That means that we're not going to men and to our partners all the time with all these needs, because there's only a few really. The rest are wants, and we can say things that we want. There's no problem. Now, how do we, however, communicate in a way that is needs-based, that's empowered with boundaries, as opposed to in a way that's needy? There's one very big difference. Telling a man, let's say, for instance, I need him to be self-accountable. So if I went up to my man and said, I need you to be self-accountable for me in a relationship to be happy and to be able to, I need to be able to keep growing, and I need to know that you can be accountable. So I really do need you to be self-accountable. That's needy. Even though it didn't sound too bad, it's needy. The difference, if you're going to be needs-based rather than neediness, is to communicate your need without an expectation for him to fulfill that need. So, example, for me to feel really satisfied and happy in a relationship, I need to be with someone who's going to be self-accountable. Zip it, there's the gap. That's it. The difference is that I haven't made it his responsibility to fulfill it. I've told him what I need, and that's it. This is an amazing way to communicate. It's very different. Remember, as women, we tend to fill that gap. We're not comfortable with the silences. We want to workshop it. If he's not saying anything, we think he's not thinking about it. We feel when we express a need in that way, just that's what I need, and say nothing else, so much of our shadow comes up where we feel unworthy. Is that too much to ask? Can I even say that? And we have to sit in that fire and feel all those things. What this does, it's so beautiful. It puts us in a place of empowerment. It creates really strong boundaries and healthy boundaries. It gives him an opportunity to be the man that he wants to be. Remember, men want to stand up. They want to step up and be our hero, but they can't do that if we keep on telling him how to do it. But giving him this opportunity enables him, or gives him that possibility to do that. And one of the really valuable things of speaking in this way, or expressing our needs in this way, is that if you're in the beginning of a relationship, you get to see very clearly what kind of a man he is, and therefore if he is the right man for you. If you express your needs by saying, I need you to ... and do it this way, then he does it. You're never really going to know if he's the man that's going to be that man for you, or if he's just doing it because you've told him to, or that he has to. But when you express in an empowered way with boundaries, this is what I need in a relationship, if he doesn't step up to it, then you can know with peace in your heart that he's not the right man for you. But if he steps up and provides that need, well, baby, then you know you are in the right place. And for those of us who've been in long-term relationships and you start communicating in this way, you will see your relationship transform. You'll see men stepping up in the way that you've always wanted them to step up. And he'll start to be happier too, because he feels like he's providing you with what he wants to give you. So remember, the difference between expressing yourself in a way that's needy and in a way that has strong boundaries around your needs is what I need, without making an expectation or having an expectation for him to fulfill it. I need more affection in my relationships. I need quality time in relationship. I need self accountability, and that's it. Okay, I'm going to move on to another topic, and I reckon we'll just get it in there. And this one is kind of cool. It kind of surpasses all of these things. These are tools that we've spoken about, and they're all really important. We kind of really need to retrain the way that we communicate in relationship. And I know it sounds a lot like, well, why are we the ones doing all the work? What can they do better? Well, there's a lot they can do better. But I'm not talking to them. I'm speaking with us and with women. And we find that if we make the changes in ourselves, especially because we more often than not embody the feminine aspect, we have the powerful magnetism of that attractive quality, that you will find the men in your life absolutely changing. It just happens, like it did with my client Natalie, and it has done with me and countless people. Well, one of the things when you've been in a relationship for some time and you haven't had these amazing tools of how to communicate, which we haven't, we've all learned from our parents, and I don't know anyone else's parents personally, but from what I've seen, most parents haven't communicated in very healthy ways. So we've probably been in relationships where our communication has broken down, where we've gotten mean and nasty, where we have been needy in the way that we talk, where we have judged them based on our own internal processing, and therefore we've gotten angry, we've gotten cold, or they've gotten angry, they've gotten distant, they felt emasculated, they've shut down, like all these things that have eroded our capacity to communicate well. So these tools are going to help you. And the one other thing that I want to share with you that's really, really important is kindness. Now, just like we have neural pathways in our nervous system that are triggers for us, that are habituated things that we've done in our life, and now we do them without thinking, and that's become the pathways within our own nervous system. Just in the same way, when we have an intimate relationship, we create these pathways of communication between us. So these are tried and tested, worn in pathways of communication. We don't think about it anymore. They're just triggers, and we just kind of go there. And these pathways have they've kind of eroded the kindness or the love between us. And when I say kindness, I think kindness is really important, because we could talk about love. Let's speak with love. Let's be loving to our partners. But what the hell is love? And that's a whole other workshop that I do. But love is much more, is a whole other thing. It's transpersonal. It's way beyond our personal self and way beyond our relationship. And it's a lot to comprehend. So I talk about kindness and being kind to our partner in the way that we speak. But of course, these habituated pathways, these relationship neural pathways, are so ingrained that it's good for us to do some reprogramming. And one of the ways that we can do that is by speaking with kindness to our partner whenever we can think about it. And this will eventually start to train new pathways of communication so that it can become a default, and it's healing. Kindness is a type of love, and it will heal the pathways that you guys have as far as your communication goes. Now, we can do this by remembering and thinking about it, and often in the moment we don't remember, and this is why I have developed a tool for this, and I'm giving it away tonight. So anyone who's watching this, I think the link will be down below. I'll check with Alicia. I want to offer you this beautiful tool that I've created called Pathways to Love. And it's a meditation. It's based on neuroplasticity, and it's really simple and it's really short, and you do it on your own. And it will help you to heal those pathways of communication between you and your partner. This particular one is designed for people in relationship. I do have one that's for singles as well, but this is designed for those of us who are already in relationship, and it can be done with it's designed to do with your intimate partner, but you can do it with anybody else as well, your children, your parents, whoever. It's a simple tool, and I really want you guys to have that. I want you to have something that you can start doing right now. We're going to wrap up in a second. Hopefully you have gained a few tools from tonight, actually, and if you haven't written them down, then hopefully you can I'm sure this will still be on the page, so you can go back and pause the video and take some notes. The win-win formula, need to remember that. Attractive versus directive communication. This is super important. And one of the real clinches is that workshopping or collaborative style processing for communication, and the autonomous style processing for communication. And remembering, let's not judge men based on our own internal processes. So there's 3 great tools, and the 4th tool, to start communicating with kindness when you can remember how to. And I have this free tool for you. I'm giving it to you guys for free tonight so that you can start doing that straight away. Now, I have talked on and on and on. I'm just checking to see if there are any questions. Oh, look at me. I've hit it right on 40 minutes. So I'm going to wrap up in a second, but I'm going to give you a moment if there's anybody who has a question right now, because if you do, I'm happy to take a moment to answer that. Otherwise, you can also post questions later on if you're watching this, in the days to come. And if you tag me in it, then I will come and have a look and answer those for you. So let's all go forth and understand a little bit better how we can communicate, and understand that, one of our biggest frustrations with communication really is that they don't understand us. And the barriers to that often is because we're coming from the same polarity as them. So when we learn to relax, step back into our more collaborative style of processing and our attractive style of communicating, then we open up those pathways for that natural flow between the masculine and the feminine, and heal those pathways of love. Okay, so thank you for watching, everybody, and I will keep an eye and an ear open for any questions that might come my way. Good night.